Morning, good morning, and welcome to the Tuesday, January 17th edition of the OBX Wave Report, where we chill out in the morning with a cup of coffee as we discuss all things waves, weather, climate, and beach lifestyle for the Outer Banks locally, as we do a little focus on the extreme weather and climate change related impacts for the lower 48 and the North Atlantic, and as we look at some big wave spots further afield. And for today, for the Outer Banks, conditions have moderated. The temperatures are up a little bit. The wave heights are down a little bit. And though we are presently experiencing moderation, we have another impulse of stormy weather sweeping in from the central United States right now to across the Appalachians. Clouds are rolling in. We have southerly and southwesterly winds blowing, changes in the air as a frontal system dips down, tapping the moisture above the much warmer than normal Gulf of Mexico, fueling storms running in across Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New York, and into the Great Lakes region. So, very large frontal system tapping into a lot of the energy, tapping into the difference in temperature between cold, wintry air in the north and warm, tropical air in the south, and tapping into warmer than normal ocean surface water conditions, which are injecting more water vapor and more evaporative lift into the atmosphere. As much preamble as I've given for this particular storm system, it's not expected to be anything too crazy. Although with our last frontal boundary, we got 38 tornadoes across the southeast, so we should definitely keep an eye to our extreme weather folk and experts and reporters and make sure we stay safe because well, here in the southeast, we have Tornado Alley encroaching from the west. There are more and more tornadoes from Louisiana to Mississippi to Alabama and possibly running into Kentucky and Tennessee and possibly into maybe even parts of northwest Georgia. For us here in the southeast and particularly on the East Coast, that's getting a little close. And with these fronts coming in and this difference in temperature and so much warmth down there in the Gulf of Mexico, anytime a big old front sweeps through, we're gonna keep our eyes to the sky for severe weather developments. Here on the Outer Banks, as far as wave conditions go, the waves are dropping down to a range of 2 to 5 feet across the Outer Banks. So still rideable, still some good surf out there at various different beaches. We're going to get into that today. And then also out west, we have some clearing in California, and in the long range forecast for California, we have much less precipitation. So actually in the short, medium to long range forecast. So all the forecasts are starting to line up for California getting the break that we've been talking about now for almost a week. So the long range models in the global forecast system seem to be bearing out. So yay, good. You guys in California do need a break, and a little bit of a silver lining for all these storms, which are now getting deflected more and more toward the north and toward Canada and Alaska, is that you guys are getting some big surf out there on the west coast. So we're going to talk about that as well. And then all the way across the pond in the North Atlantic, in Portugal, we have big waves coming in off the North Atlantic. Significant wave heights right now in the near offshore environment, ranging from 15 to 25 feet, and that swell is expected to pump up for Portugal over the course of the day. So we might see some radical, crazy stuff um, for that deep water surf spot with its deep channel running in there at Nazar, Portugal. So those who watch the big wave spots, maybe get your peepers out, and we'll see how this swell lines up and see if Nazar does indeed go off as some of the models are presently predicting. All right, so that's our preamble for today. Let's look at the infrared satellite shot for the United States. And we do see that frontal system sweeping on in with the higher upper level cloud tops. We don't yet see any really extreme storms to the south near the Gulf Coast, but we'll keep a weather eye to that as conditions may change later on in the day with this frontal boundary sweeping in. We've got that break for California with some Pacific moisture streaming in over Baja and northern Mexico and into New Mexico, Arizona, and Texas area. So California getting a bit of like a hole carved out here. Although storms do still lurk offshore, they are expected to get deflected more and more to the north. And that's good news for California. I did want to show you the NOAA QPF model showing expected rainfall totals or precipitation totals for the next week over the next 7 days for the lower 48 of the United States. And right now, the most of the rain's predicted to occur for the east and the southeast, particularly a hot spot being Georgia, with in the range of looks like 3 to 5 inches of rain potential for central Georgia near the Atlanta area. So Atlanta might be a bit of a precipitation hotspot, but not anywhere near what was seen recently in California, where we got week after week after week of heavy precipitation for California. Right now, precipitation totals in the NOAA QPF model for California ranging from no precipitation at all in southern regions, parts of southern regions, to around 1 to 1.5 inches for northern regions and some of the mountain regions, and that likely to translate as snow. So yeah, California predicted to get a break in the near-term forecast in the next week. So good news. Looking at the National Weather Service radar, I did want to show you what's going on here. We have a massive showers and storms, most of them pretty moderate at this time. Let's go ahead and refresh this, just make sure we're up to date. Yep. So massive showers and storms associated with the front, most of it pretty moderate in the sense of nothing real too crazy as far as severe thunderstorms go. But we do have a few flood watches up in the Northern Virginia area and down along the rivers in South Carolina and Georgia. So something to keep an eye on. And as this front sweeps on through, we might get some stormier weather as the afternoon progresses and we get some warmer temperatures across the southeast in the range of the 60s and 70s. And then the front itself is expected to sweep on to the east later on today. And let's look closer at the Outer Banks. We've got a little area of disturbed weather just offshore and storms lurking to the west in central North Carolina over near the Raleigh area. For weather alerts, looks like we've got some small craft advisories up, nothing too crazy. We had some gale force conditions over recent days in association with a big old coastal low that was kicking up a gale across the North Atlantic with a northerly and northwesterly flow, as well as some powerful surf that we've observed for you guys over the past 2 days. All right, so let's get down to our local observations for the Outer Banks. And we are gonna, no, we're not gonna start at Avon. We are gonna start at Jeanette's Pier as we typically do because we do love Jeanette's Pier. Jeanette's Pier is so cool. And starting off at Jeanette's Pier, we find that wave heights at our Science Pier, which is like the coolest thing ever. If you ever go to the Outer Banks, you have to visit Jeanette's Pier. It's really cool. And you must visit the Outer Banks because the Outer Banks is beautiful and fun and surreal and it's one of the last places that is kind of on the edge. If you're in the northern Outer Banks, you can get like a large number of folk coming in, particularly during the summertime. But if you want to come when it's more chill, literally the winter time is great. And if you want to get away from things, I mean, really, really get away from things, and without like, you know, getting on an airplane and traveling to some deserted island somewhere. All you need to do with the Outer Banks is just go south. You can, get down into Waves and Salvo, and that's pretty remote. You can get down into Hatteras Village, which is, pretty remote. And then and then if you really want to get nuts, you can take a ferry on down to Ocracoke and check out the beautiful Hobbit-like villages down there and really get away. So there's all sorts of escapes here in Hatteras and in the Outer Banks. And if you really want to go, you can get out on a boat and go out to the Gulf Stream, which is just about 40, 20, it depends on like conditions, but 20, 30, 40 miles offshore. And if you get out on the boat, you actually see the difference, like where the Gulf Stream is, because the Gulf Stream carries that tropical water and it has that beautiful tropical kind of teal color to it. And it's just the boundary between like the Labrador and your typical North Atlantic waters in the Gulf Stream is just like boom, it's just like crossing a boundary. So yeah, and then of course there's surfing, and that's what we're here for. We're here to talk to you about the surfing, and the surfing here on the Outer Banks is really good. It's consistently good. Average wave heights here in the wintertime, 7 feet. That's no joke. So we kind of got it all. We kind of got all the fun stuff here, and there's all sorts of cool water sports. There's not just surfing. There's paddle boarding, and there's kite surfing, and there's a great company down here called Kitty Hawk Kites that like does all these cool like training courses, and there's some fantastic surf shops down here. Real Water Sports is amazing down to the south of us near Road Anthony. So we got all the fun stuff here at the Outer Banks. So please come and enjoy the beautiful coastlines with us because I mean um, there's just so much to enjoy and appreciate here as we come to the edge, as we humans meet with nature. There's just the sitting on the like kind of the knife edge of the future here. There's something inspiring about it. So I know I went on, but all right. So let's get back to Jeanette's Pier. So the wave heights at Jeanette's Pier for today are 2 to 4 feet. Very rideable, very fun. Might be a little choppy here with some southwest winds, but still rideable. I'm going to go down there later today. I expect to see some surfers. The primary swell is coming in at 10 seconds, secondary swell coming in at 11 seconds. Winds are out of the southwest at 14 miles per hour, which is offshore flow, nothing too crazy as far as wind speeds, but further down south we got some stronger winds. The air temperature right now is 47 degrees Fahrenheit. That's warmer than yesterday by about 6 degrees. Ocean water temperature is 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Pretty chilly, getting close to that 49-degree mark. I know it's psychological, but 40s are cold water, boys and girls and boys and all the other folks. So yeah, cold. Make sure you got your cold weather protection. And weather conditions right now and expected for today, we expect storms by afternoon with those storms lurking off to the west. High today expected at Jeanette's Pier of 55 degrees Fahrenheit. We are going to head on down to the coast to the traditional big wave spot for the Outer Banks, which is Buxton, and Buxton today does not disappoint. So as we go down Route 12 and we get to Buxton, we find that wave heights off of Buxton here are in the range of 4 to 5 feet. Pretty good. Not not as crazy as it has been over recent days with 7 to 9 foot waves or higher, but still pretty big, pretty burly down there at Buxton at 4 to 5 feet. Primary swell is coming in at 10 seconds. Secondary swell is coming in at 11 seconds. Winds are out of the west-southwest at 21 miles per hour, which is offshore. Air temperatures are 58 degrees Fahrenheit, so considerably warmer down there at Buxton. Ocean water temperatures 61 degrees, also considerably warmer, but you're going to need your cold weather protection, even with those water temperatures and air temperatures. Today's weather forecast for Buxton is warmer than yesterday, which we are seeing now with storms by afternoon, expected high of 59 dudes, getting up there close to 60. So yeah, so some pretty good waves down there at Buxton and much warmer conditions than yesterday. And then we are going to take the right-hand turn down Route 12, and then we are going to head on down to Billy Mitchell Airport because I just love Billy Mitchell Airport and the beaches there, which right now are hosting not too large waves, waves in the range of 2 to 3 feet, so still rideable, but getting in the smallish range. Waves coming in with a primary period of 11 seconds for the primary swell and 4 seconds for the secondary swell. Winds coming out of the southwest at 21 miles per hour. Southwest flow is onshore here, so pushing onshore with those 2 to 3 foot waves. We expect these waves to get a little bit larger over the course of the day as the winds continue out of the south and southwest. Air temperature right now at Billy Mitchell is 57 degrees Fahrenheit, ocean water temperature at 62. And as with most locations along the Outer Banks, we expect storms later today in the afternoon time frame. And similar to Buxton, Billy Mitchell region near the beach there is expected to see a high of 59 degrees Fahrenheit. And so that concludes our local roundup. Let's go ahead and get back out to some model forecasts. I did want to talk about some tendencies, and the main tendencies to focus on here for the global forecast system model running out through the next 10 days. And it looks like it just updated, but we're going to need to go back to the other model because it's not showing the whole sequence, and we want to show you the whole sequence as the most recent global forecast system model update. So the main features are storminess for the east, drying and colder conditions for the west and California. And I'm going to just go ahead and run this model, and let's look at California through the first run. So you've got one impulse coming in early, and then a high pressure system. Pretty much big old high pressure system dominates for a while, and then bounces around with high pressure systems reasserting throughout much of the model forecast here over the west, warding off storms for California throughout this particular global forecast system model. And even the US West Coast just generally getting less storms in this region. So good news for California. I'm going to stop this model for just 1 second, and then we're going to shift our eyes to the east. Now looking east, we see a progression of storms, and let's just back this up. So we've got the front coming through today with what appears to be a pretty mild frontal zone with some storms across the east, but at least as far as severe weather is concerned, nothing too major predicted. I'm going to go ahead and run the model, and then by Thursday, we've got another storm system sweeping in, this one looking a little bit more intense in the model. And then that one's expected to sweep on through, kick offshore, and intensify, bring another snowstorm for the US Northeast by Friday. And then we have another storm forming from the Gulf of Mexico region, just rising kind of up out of the Gulf of Mexico by Sunday. And this is getting into the longer range, so you can take this stuff with a grain of salt. Generating a rather large snowstorm type event for the Great Lakes region, and what looks like a pretty powerful and intensely severe system to the south here with lots of potential thunderstorms and tornadoes. This, of course, getting into next week, and then sweeping on offshore into Monday. And then as we get into later portions of the model, We have yet another storm forming near the Gulf states with some serious band of severe weather popping up across Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, and then a kind of coastal low starting to form. There we go. And there's your coastal low. And that looks like both very severe weather south, snowy weather north into the mid-Atlantic, and that looks a bit like a nor'easter. So we might want to keep a weather eye for some potential nor'easters here as we progress. This one appears to sweep on offshore pretty quick though. And then as we get later into the models, we see this continued tendency for storms to develop over the Gulf and generate weather conditions for the US Southeast and possible coastal lows. So this is something that we want to keep an eye on. And here we go with the end of the model with another pretty intense set of conditions developing at the tail end of the model into February. Of course, this is just a very long range model by the time we get to the end of the model. So you can take it with a huge grain of salt. The actual weather conditions are not anywhere near as likely to emerge in the exact fashion predicted by this model. But what it does show is a tendency for storminess shifting toward the end of the model, particularly toward the southeast, and that's something that we here in the Outer Banks want to keep an eye on. And then of course out west we've got a lot less in the way of predicted storms in the global forecast system model, which is good news for California. That forecast is solidifying, which is nice to see. All right, so I did talk about Nazar and Portugal and the big waves that are coming in now to Portugal and Spain. So right now in the near offshore environment off of Portugal, we've got significant wave heights. Oh, wow, I said 15 to 25 feet. It looks more like 20 to 25 feet. So there's already some very large significant wave heights. I'm just going to zoom in on just offshore of Nazar, which is a very interesting spot. I'm going to just put the little dot right here, and then we're going to run the model. So right now, according to the wave model, swells just offshore of Nazar are ranging around 22 feet. And because of the shape of the bay, you can end up with wave heights about twice the size of the swell coming in. And of course, with significant wave heights, this is the top 70% of waves. This is not the tallest waves. And the tallest waves in these significant wave heights can be up to twice as tall. So, I mean, dare I say there might be some 40-foot waves out here. All right, so let's go ahead and advance this model. And what we see is the waves rising throughout the day here. So about an hour later, waves expected to be higher at around 23 feet, and then an hour later, 24 feet, and then 25 feet significant wave heights, and then maintaining at 25-foot significant wave heights for a number of hours. So a large wave event apparent in the wave models for Nazar and Portugal for today. So for you big wave watchers, keep your peepers peeled because it could get pretty gnarly out there at Nazar today. We'll see how actual conditions line up based on the observations, but could be interesting. All right, so as we wrap up our OBX wave report, we are going to go back to the Outer Banks. We've gone a little far afield, and I just want to show you. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, I did want to talk about the U.S. West Coast. So let's just go ahead and talk about the U.S. West Coast, because even though the U.S. West Coast is not Nazar, Portugal, we are definitely seeing some pretty big surf out there, even as the storms move off more to the north. And so let's go ahead and run the model here and show you some of the predicted significant wave heights for California. So right now it's around 11 feet off the Los Angeles area, 11 to 12 feet. And then for tomorrow, it's expected to be around 9. And of course, smaller as you get in closer to shore. And then look at these big old storms out here. So they're still firing. They're just not headed toward California. They're headed elsewhere. And they're headed toward Canada and the Aleutians and toward Alaska. And then, yeah, so maintaining in the range of about 9 feet by, let's see, Thursday. Yep, and then maintaining in the range of about 9 feet by Friday, and dipping down to around 7.5 to 8 feet. This off of Los Angeles by Saturday, I believe. Maybe that was Sunday. I might have lost track. No, that's Saturday. And then we have a large, just look at this big old storm out here south of the Aleutians. Just a big old thing. With 37-foot significant wave heights, but just huge waves over a massive area. That was the stuff that was headed toward California, but now it's heading elsewhere. It's heading toward Canada. So those storms are not heading toward California now, which is just a blessing, but you can see them. They are still there. They still exist, even though California is not getting hit. Somewhere else is getting it now. Um, I'm tempted. I want to look at the air models. Hold on. Okay, yeah, that's a big old beastly thing with probably maximum sustained winds in the 50 to 60 mile an hour range over, yep, big area. So huge line of fetch here. We got even stronger, like tinier, but like more intense wind type storms coming out of the Japan, north of Japan here in the east of Kamchatka region. And just let's go ahead and let's go ahead and back this up. That's at the end of the model. So right now we've got a storm up near Alaska, and we got another storm south of the Aleutians. And just let's just watch them. So boom, the one storm kind of cycles into Canada as the other one rides up the Aleutian chain and into Alaska. And then another storm system rides up into Alaska and Canada. And then the one that we were talking about, the big one, forms south of the Aleutians and then rides up toward the Aleutians. So that's what's happening with the storms. They're looping back up toward Canada, Alaska, and even the lower Arctic region. And they're not heading toward California. Notice this nice area of clear space with a big warding high pressure system just sitting off the west coast. And that's happiness. That is less intense drama for California at least. So no more big old bomb cyclones, no more massive atmospheric river pointing at California right now in the near term models. And we can celebrate for California. Okay, so um, wow. Okay, I can't stop looking at features. Look at the North Atlantic here. There's this massive fetch coming from south to north, tapping into the tropics and heading up toward the Arctic at the end of the model. I'm fascinated by weather in the Arctic, so I'm going to keep an eye on this thing. We'll see how much warm air gets injected into the Arctic, but that looks like a potential major warm air injection into the Arctic, and that's a climate fingerprint. That's a climate change related event that affects all of us on the coastlines and around the world. So potentially, if you get like a big major warm up in the Arctic. And just generally, the Arctic is much warmer than normal now, but we've also seen these winter warming events in the Arctic that can bring the general climate trend into focus in the form of a weather event that pushes temperatures in the Arctic to record or near record warm ranges. And such events during wintertime have been more frequent of late. So let's look at the temperature model. So you can see this warm air just moving on to the north here over the ocean and over parts of Ireland and England and just aiming at Svalbard. Svalbard is definitely one of the areas in the Arctic that has seen just extreme change in its climate in the Arctic Ocean environment. So we'll keep an eye on how much warmth gets injected into the Arctic right now. I don't really see this as being too crazy, but we'll see. We'll see how the models pan out. Um, as I am unable to divine exactly what's going to occur, but the uh, the structure here with this large fetch is something to keep an eye on. Okay, we've gone afield. Let's go back to the ocean. Let's go back to the Outer Banks. Let's go back to now and let's talk a little bit about what the waves are expected to do over the next few days as we wrap up the OBX wave report for today. So right now, waves in the near offshore environment are in the range of 4 to 5 feet. And for tomorrow, they're expected to be in the range of 3 to 4 feet. And then for Thursday, near offshore waves, according to the models, are expected to be in the range of 2 to 3 feet. So falling down a little bit in the near offshore environment. And then the waves pick up again in the range of 3 to 6 feet, with a focus on our south-facing beaches with another front that's expected to come in and kick up the waves. And I'll just go ahead and see if we can get one more. And then by the 21st, by Saturday, waves again dropping off. Looks like a little bit in the range of 3 to 4 feet, maybe 2.5 to 4 feet by the end of the models. All right, so thank you for joining me for the OBX Wave Report, where we discuss all things waves, weather, climate, and beach lifestyle. For some follow-ons, we're going to go ahead and get down to the beaches, but I did want to say that we got our fin puller for the FCS surf fins, so we're going to be doing an unboxing and a demonstration of how to use the fin puller for FCS 2 series fins. Hopefully I won't bust the fin boxes out of my board. The fins are really super tight in there. I'm a little worried. And then we're getting our cold weather gear set up piece by piece, and we're getting some O'Neill slip toe heat booties. And we're going to do a little unboxing of the O'Neill, I'm sorry, said slip toe, split toe heat booties for our feet to stay warm in the wintertime. And we've got some more cold weather gear coming in, but this is one of the bits of cold weather gear that we're going to look at in some little special editions over the next couple of days. Oops, yeah, and I'm going to drop everything. So now is the time to drop everything. So thank you for joining me for the OBX Wave Report for January the 17th, Tuesday, January the 17th. And as we do every day, I would like to urge you to please, please do everything you can to help save our beautiful coastal communities from the impacts of climate change driven by fossil fuel burning. The main effort right now to confront the climate crisis being a rapid transition to clean energy and a cessation a cessation of fossil fuel burning. Because right now that is the major driver of the climate crisis, and we need to stop it. There's billions and billions of tons, whole mountains of carbon getting dumped into the atmosphere every single year. And that's really radically starting to change our world. And it's going to have terrible, catastrophic, and harmful impacts for those living on the coastline if it does not stop. And so not only do I live on the coastline, but there is just so much the coastlines do give to our present world, our present civilization, our lives in the form of wealth and prosperity and joy. And we can't just let that go. Can't just say, oh, well, it's inevitable, because it's not. It's not. So in any case, thank you for joining me.